Hey, what's good, my amazing friends? Thank you so much for tuning into The Remedy. I am Sarah Grace. If you're just tuning in for your first time or your 100th time, you guys, I just am so grateful that we get to hang out together and we get to talk about things that um, maybe you don't hear about in mainstream, and mostly that we get to talk about the Lord Jesus Christ, because through Jesus, uh, he is our only hope, right? There is no other hope in heaven and earth than the King of Kings, and Jesus is King. And so, anyway, there's so much going on right now in the world. I mean, I feel like I've been saying that every single show since we started in 2021. Like, what's happening now? What's happening? It's crazy. But um this last week, well, just yesterday, we have this incredible, yet another assassination attempt on President Trump. The deep state be deepin', and they just keep trying. And it's bizarre. It's bizarre to live in the world and keep up with everything that's going on. My guests today are the founders of a media press publication that speaks truth, and their mission is to spread the good news of Jesus, but also to uncover truths, just like Ephesians chapter 5 verse 11 says that. It says to take no part in the works of evil, but to expose them. And these gals really have put themselves out there and are exposing these works on the daily. And so their publication is called The Flame. If you guys are not familiar, you can go to their website is The Flame USA. You can see it on the ticker tape. But I am going to welcome to The Remedy right now Nicole and Anna. You guys, thank you so much for coming on The Remedy. And, there's so much to talk about. I don't even know where to start. But first, let's start with you guys introducing yourselves to the audience, and also tell us a little bit or a lot bit about how The Flame came to be.
All right. Well, I'm Anna Kane. I am a mom. I'm an angry mom sometimes, and really just looking at the world and realizing what I want to leave behind for my children and my great grandchildren and generations to come. And so, with that, God laid on my heart, gosh, probably a year before COVID, to do social media influencing and write short stories. And neither of those things are actually what I would say are any giftings of mine. I often say that God has to be a crazy God, and he's pretty silly because he's definitely taken me outside of my comfort zone. And I'm more of a relational people person, hands-on person, caretaker, just really relational, but just not on paper. And so I just kind of sat with it, and then COVID happened, and that was kind of an eye opener. I feel like it was a place where God called a lot of people in a lot of incredible ways. And the first time that a lot of people really stepped into their giftings and into their calling, more or less knowing that everything around them just wasn't what it seemed to be. Their eyes were being deceived. What we saw was what we were told isn't happening. And so I think that people had to reach a little bit deeper, and God really showed up and came through. And Nicole and I had known each other for, I mean, over a decade. And the first time we were able to actually gather in a church again, because we're in Seattle, so most churches were closed. I mean, we took lockdown seriously over here.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first time we were able to really gather together was probably a year in. And we hadn't seen each other in probably 2 years. Talked here and there on through social media, but hadn't seen each other in a couple years. And she asked me what I was doing, and I said, I'm not listening. And she said, what do you mean you're not listening? I said, God's telling me I need to do social media influencing and write short stories. And neither of those things I have any interest in, and I'm not even good at them. So I'm just kind of sitting and not listening. And Nicole, in her gracious way, is like, that's easy. I've written a book. I can help you do that. Let's get together. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, what do you mean that's easy? Like, it is not easy. And so we plan to meet together, and I'll let Nicole share who she is and how that story unfolds a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm Nicole Orozco, and at that time, me and Anna had a date to, go over chapter outlines for short stories. And in the meantime, I'm watching Dr. Tenpenny on vaccines, and a guy I knew, Sean Jason out of Canada, had a newspaper. And I thought, oh, that's brilliant. He was getting about 500,000 papers out a month. And so I called him up and said, we need this in the United States. And I said, Anna, Sean was on Dr. Tenpenny. What about a newspaper? And I go, it's short stories and it's easier, let's do our paper. And so we had a name of some paper. And I sent it to Sean. He goes, why not just do our paper and distribute it in America? And I'm all, that's easier. So I asked her, do you want to do Sean's paper? And she's all, yeah, maybe, it would be easier and it would be quick because we got to get this information out now,
Right.
It was all on tyranny. And so we were the national coordinators for that Canadian paper. And he pulled out of the United States. We did it for about 6 months, boot camp. We brought 100,000 to Bard's Fest.
Wow.
100,000 papers. Anna's driving the U-Haul. We pack. We're sweaty. It's Missouri. We go to Bard's Fest and we meet everybody. All the influencers were at this Bard's Fest. Clay Clark. Tom Rentz, Dr. Tenpenny, Ohio Brett, our brother. Shout out to Ohio Brett.
Yeah.
All these people, so many people. And we have 100,000 papers. And so we have pallets and we've got carts we're giving to people to take around the United States. So then he pulled out of the United States because Canada was just so much, I guess, to keep going. And so we're like, what are we going to do? And it needed to be more American based anyway.
Yeah.
People kept saying, when are you going to get US content? When are you going to get US content? And so we'll do our own. And so God managed to get us a website designer, we got the layout, and we had this up and running within 3 weeks. It was a miraculous thing. And so that is how the Flame was launched on January 1st of 2021. And we've been going strong ever since. We've gotten about 1 million papers out. And as the shifting times shift with different types of problems, we want to be solution based. So, Anna?
Yeah, and our model is different. Our whole goal from the very beginning was, and we just talked about this, getting out of the echo chamber. So social media is beautiful. The web is beautiful. There's so much information you can find, but during 2020 and on, we saw a lot of censorship, and we saw how dangerous it has been to just solely rely on that, because if somebody doesn't like what you're saying, they just take you down.
Mhm.
And so the censorship was a huge concern. It felt sometimes that, we were fighting for something that everybody's like, it's obsolete, paper's obsolete, it costs too much, it's this, it's that. And honestly, it's the only way, because once it's written and it's in circulation, you can't censor it. And the beauty behind that was also to have the model that forged that ahead. And so our model is not for a subscriber to get one paper, but it's for a subscriber to get multiple papers and get them out into their communities. So a lot of our subscribers get 15 to 300 papers at a time, and they pass them out in their local area. And that is so important. I mean, we hear General Flynn talk about local action makes national impact, and that is so true. And so we also have the Act 3-3, which is 333. Sorry,
you missed a three.
Which is for somebody to order 3 papers, hand out 3 papers, and ask 3 other people to get 3 papers. And that's really how we forge ahead and make people aware. The other thing that makes us different is we're constantly looking for content from people who are American citizens, people who are actually doing something, the doctors, the lawyers.
In the trenches.
In the trenches, you know, going to the school board meetings, going to the city council meetings, and really seeing what's happening in front of them so that, again, our eyes do not deceive us. What we see is happening. And if we can get it in paper, then I think it encourages people to have solutions, because they are going to start acting and they are going to start forging ahead and making other people aware and really standing for truth and standing for the right things instead of putting their heads in the sand and thinking somebody else is going to save them.
And it brings people together. We're trying to separate the divide. It was a divide and conquer strategy. Mm-hmm. And we are going against some people. I don't know what they're possessed with or if they just were born evil. But for whatever case, this has been an agenda for a long time. And it's not us against them. If we talk to our neighbor, typically we could find 80 to 90% of common ground of what we do agree with, that we want safe communities for our children, that we want a good economy, that we want love. We want to be the light. You know, we want to be like Jesus and walk like Jesus and talk like Jesus. But we also want to just love our neighbor as ourselves.
Yeah, we don't want the division in sexuality and race and political stance. We actually want to come together.
And so divide and conquer has been a big problem. If you go on Twitter, you're going to see just 2 different polarities of people just looking crazy. And we have to bring this back to common sense and critical thinking. And so our paper's designed for people to do some of their own research and their own thought process and bring it back to your podcast, to our podcast, back to the internet. If you're a Twitter mom, you're on Twitter, and let's say you're a Pinterest mom, and you're out there, you're getting your kids to school, you're going to church, you're busy, you're going to soccer. You're probably not seeing the same things that we see. You're probably seeing how to do a good party on Twitter instead of about what's going on in the world. The algorithms completely show you what you're going to see on social media. So Absolutely. If you're not paying attention, you're not going to find if you go through the grocery store and you say, hey, have you saw that, Sarah's new Rumble video? And they'll say, what's Rumble? Right. 90% of the population is not where we are. Even if they know something's up, they just aren't in the depths of it. They're busy. They're trying to survive, but they have to be a part of it too. So our paper is an easy way for people to become a part of a movement in order to make some change. Because the more people that are aware of what's going on, the more people that get involved, even at whatever level they can, and the more people that are saying, you're not going to, turn us into a communist country or use your tyranny on us, the less they can do. If we're awake, they can't do it. And it doesn't take everybody, but it takes a tipping point of people. And that's what we're looking for. We need millions of these papers out. Every organization should have their own paper. We could do that for them. Wow. Everybody should have a paper. We need, as many as there are Americans, we need to beat the New York Times and the mainstream media. And 100%. We can't always do it through it. The one tool is this. There's tons of papers out there that you see on newsstands that literally goes into somebody's brain template, and it's propaganda. And so we have got to fight the propaganda.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And what's funny too is the longer you are in the echo chamber and talking to people, and everybody's, screaming and yelling about mainstream media and where it's leading us and how it's deceiving us. Yet there's a solution, and so many people are just completely blind to it because it really is simple. I even see, for podcasters, it's a great way to get your name out, because what happens is, if a podcaster's getting 300 papers and they're taking it to their local mechanic shop, and they're taking it to their library, and they're taking it to the grocery store and leaving a few here and there, then people take what they read and they start researching. And who are they going to find? They're going to find people like you who have
Right.
stepped out and are now talking about this, and they continue to dig. I can't even tell you, we're smart, and we know a lot of things now because we forged those relationships, and we dug for the truth, and we dug deeper. We allowed God to use us, and really ran with our discernment, not what people around us were saying. And so with that, it really is the only tool to get outside of being looked for. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yes.
And until that happens, we just continue to divide and divide and divide. I say all the time, there's a percentage of things that we cover in the paper that I don't truly 100% believe in, but it believes a platform because it's somebody else's experience, and it may touch somebody else and allow them to dig deeper, because our job isn't to convince anybody, or we're here to inspire and to love through all of the division. And the more that we learn, the more we see that the division is so purposeful, and the more we want, we've changed from year one to screaming about the division to, okay, if your sexual desires is none of my business, but your sexual desires being planted into my child's brain is over the edge. Like, we can't accept that, right? Like, you
Right.
are not going to groom my children. What you choose to do in your bedroom is your choice, but you're not going to groom my children. And there's these places where, those subjects are hard, right? Because we're supposed to stand for our values and scream
Right.
and yell from the rooftop. But God also calls us to love thy neighbor. And some of that, I think too, is when we love harder and we accept more, people actually shift more.
Yeah.
And they're willing to listen more. And I'm willing to listen more now and be like, okay, well, that's a decision between you and God. And that, I'm here for you either way. I'm gonna love you either way. But going after my kids is too far.
Yes.
And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
there's a lot of middle gray areas and middle ground, but when we resort to love and work through that, it'll all get figured out.
Totally. I mean, this world has become so ununified, so many divisive topics, and you're absolutely right. When you come after the kids, then there's a dividing line, and when you start shoving things down our throat, then there's a dividing line. And it's bizarre, all of the information that's curated for people online based on what their life is. These devices that we carry in our pockets really are tracking us, tracking what we're doing. And like you said, some maybe a soccer mom, and I don't want to put, soccer moms on blast, but their device is hearing that.
For it.
Right. Yeah. And so like their device is hearing that. And so then the social media, they have these algorithms that are then curating information. And so, it's bizarre to me when I talk to someone and they say, well, I didn't know that was going on. I had no idea. And I think to myself, how can you not? It's literally on, thousands and thousands and thousands of pages. And as we are the news now, people are becoming the news. People are waking up, even on both sides, I guess, of the aisle, that legacy news media is not truthful. And, there are still some people who are very much into legacy news media, but, people are waking up to that. So I love what you guys are doing, and how you're getting it out there on a kind of an cancelable platform, where, that written word is out there in people's hands. And, it doesn't matter what, Zuck does, or, what, BlackRock, I don't want to say it out loud, but we're going to get shut off of Facebook because we're live right now. But, it doesn't matter if they shut it down, because that written word is in people's hands, which is absolutely incredible. Since I'm from the Pacific Northwest, and many people who, watch or listen to my show, or if you're new, I moved from Portland, Oregon to Texas 3 years ago, but you gals are still in the Pacific Northwest.
Mhm.
How is your stance and what you guys are doing? How is that received? Because Seattle is, the Pacific Northwest is still really out there. I have family still in the Pacific Northwest, and, other parts of the country, it's very different. When I lived there, I thought everywhere was like the way that Portland is. It's not. Moving to Texas, it is not like that here. And thank you, God, we feel like we're refugees from the
We've
Pacific
done a
Northwest.
lot of travel, and yeah, no, there is no place like the Northwest. And it's funny because it kind of does show how division works and it doesn't work, because in our area, yes, people push back. We've had we sent out 40,000 papers in every door direct, and there was a Facebook video of somebody burning the paper in their backyard fire. And I always say that
Or they signed us up to the Church of Satan.
Oh
one
yeah,
time.
yeah, that
was a
happened
good
too.
one. Yeah.
But
We've been called Nazi. We've been called like fascist, Marxist, and the thing is if they just sat down and had a cup of coffee, I bet we would be on a whole different train and being able to say, what about that inflation? Oh, look at all the people dying from fentanyl on the corner over there. Isn't that sad? But anyway, go on.
yeah, but
You're
the
right.
thing is
There's a
even
lot of
bad
common
press
ground.
is good press,
Yes.
because all it does is then people are like, why is that person burning that paper? What is that paper? Right. So, it really doesn't go against what we're doing, but it is surprising because we have a lot of foot action that happens in Ohio and Florida and Missouri. And so when we travel, you can see that there's certain states that have more active people, and what you see in Washington and Oregon and in California is there's not, when I see division, you definitely can't have just a random conversation about politics because it will go somewhere.
Mhm.
But really, everybody wants to do their own thing. Everybody's kind of in their own world, doing their own thing, just like the soccer mom, when their feed is specific to them, they think the whole world is acting as in the same categories that they're seeing. And so they can't see outside of that. And you see the same thing in Washington is people just kind of go around, do their own thing. They think that everything that is happening is just, it's a system. They're really good at accepting systems. Like, this is just the way it's supposed to be. And it's because it's busy. It's because really, like I said, if you can't just be yourself and have conversation, people just stop doing it. So people aren't having the same relationships. It's not the same conversations in the grocery store line, when somebody pulls up and you're like, oh, hi, how's your day? And you just have like a surface conversation. It's like nobody even wants to engage because they don't know where the conversation's going to go.
It's different in Seattle. Okay, I'm about 25 minutes out of Seattle. Anna's probably about 40. And so in my area, we were doing lacrosse yesterday at a field. Everybody's just acting normal. It was a beautiful day. I'm talking to the moms. I'm grandma, my 5-year-old granddaughter's doing the lacrosse thing and she's loving it. She's loving that game and it's all normal. you drive down to Seattle, and we did that a month ago, and we went to Pikes. My son came down from California. We did the whole touristy thing, and we had a good time in Seattle, but it's a whole different culture in Seattle. The King County, all of the crazy is all focused into one part of Washington state. It kind of like Portland, I'm sure there was outskirts of Portland that were kind of decent, and then everything's concentrated into the city, and it does seep out, but it's its own kind of crazy. You've got naked people running down the street. You have you have a lot of the very far left out in Seattle. That's where Chaz was. That's where they burned the city down. And that
Right.
didn't affect us so much in our area, so people get this template of it's the big cities, and that's where they're taking the hold of the culture. And it does seep into the education system, but that's the thing that you could sign, which we had in our paper on, what was that called? The
Hatch Amendment.
The Hatch Amendment. And so that was front page in our paper, how you could opt out if you have no choice but to put your kids in public school, you can opt them out of the stuff you don't want them. And those are the solutions we carry, because that's anywhere USA. That's seeping into everywhere USA. And so you can sign a Hatch Amendment and opt your kid out. Easy peasy.
Yeah.
The unfortunate thing, though, as Nicole's talking about how, these big cities basically talk for the rest of the state, it's true. And what happens is all the craziness happens in these big cities to hide things. All the illegal immigrants that are coming in, they're taking them straight to the big cities because they can just push them in and nobody will even be aware. I just had dinner. Yep. I had dinner in Seattle like 3 weeks ago. Well, not actually, maybe it's a month and a half ago now. And it was heart-wrenching. My favorite restaurant, there's no place like Thai Tom's in the University District for Thai food. And it broke I did not feel safe even getting out of my car.
Yeah.
And what was crazy in that is that it was the American citizens drugged out of their mind, hitting my car, coming up, talking to me, wanting hush money, falling over in the streets. And then it was the Asian descent running around with their $300 backpack, $500 shoes, fully educated, because it's the U district. So they're, walking around getting dinner and, whatever. And you see this massive takeover. And again, your eyes don't lie. I believe that our immigration system needs some work, but I absolutely believe in freedom of people, right? Like that's what God calls for.
Right.
But when you see this purposeful place where immigrants are thriving while Americans are in la la land dying, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
And it doesn't make sense on purpose because they're using these big cities as basically hideaways. And yet they control all of our votes.
Yeah, it's it's wild. And again, it's wild to me when people don't realize that. Especially, and I'm going to say especially people in, California, Oregon, Washington, maybe New York state, or, Manhattan area, and some of these other uber liberally controlled states. But if you go back historically, Washington, Oregon, and California were both very conservative states, actually, historically, until they brought in mail-in voting. And if you go down the history of that, it's kind of crazy. But I digress. And I hope and pray that these areas, that they can turn the ship around eventually. Because it's, if you start really looking down the voting rabbit hole in those areas, it's potentially, not potentially, but it's potentially, fraudulent stuff going on potentially I say that so I don't get canceled off of off of my social media, because I already am in the doghouse in most of my social media.
It's not
So
even just the voting. It's the candidates. It's gathering candidates.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
getting people to run for office. I mean, the voting part of it is the place where I think is very emotional for people, because we want to feel like we had a choice. But we're seeing we don't even have a choice in who runs.
right, right.
And
Yeah,
They
it's
decide.
wild. Yeah,
and what's happening too is people are leaving in droves,
yeah.
to Texas.
Yes,
All the
yes.
good ones.
Hey,
All the
we stuck it
people.
out for a long time, and then the Lord
No,
said
and
go. But
I'm
I will
saying,
say yes. Uh-huh.
I might be next door to you in a year, but the point being, or Tennessee or somewhere. But the point being is everybody's leaving. They're going to Idaho. They're going to Montana. Florida. They're leaving, and what happens is then they import people into the cities that they want to vote a certain way.
Yeah.
And then you lose the people that would vote in the city, because Washington's red or purple, so a lot of the counties are red, but the major city is blue.
Right. Same
And
in
I'm not a
Oregon.
red. Yeah, I'm not a red or blue. If policy makes sense on either side.
Yeah.
It's just because I believe they're two sides of the same coin. I do believe that Trump is our only chance for change nationally. He's our only hope, and I don't mean this like Jesus is our only hope. I
Correct.
mean politically.
Yes. I agree.
He as just a candidate. If Kamala gets in, we're done. And the Marxist, this has been an agenda for a long time. So we have to be on the local level, fighting, and I don't mean fighting, but acting.
Right.
And
Being active. Uh-huh. Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
being
We have to be so
active.
careful, because, they could come around and say, well, listen, you're being an instigator. And it's like,
Yeah,
whoa,
I don't
it's
mean
so
fight.
bizarre.
I mean acting, as
Yeah.
in candidates could get their own paper. They could
Yep.
hire us to do a paper if they don't know how to do one right. We're there for them as a publishing company, but they need to. I was talking to my friend yesterday, and she's running for Congress, Carrie Kennedy, and she's in Island County. And the Herald .net, I guess it was the physical paper, she was front page. They did a full hit piece on her, slander, called her an oath keeper. She's military, she's never been an oath keeper. They had lie after lie after lie after lie, or spun it just to slander her. She made front page. And so I'm like reading this going, God, I mean, at least get some facts. And then they tried to associate her with violence, which she's not violent. She was ever. And I was just like, are you kidding me? And so the point is that, and people noticed, and that was newspaper. So I said, you need to go door knock for your campaign and tell people the truth of what you are about.
Right.
Talk about your integrity. You should get a newspaper, but if not, you better ballot harvest. It's legal in Washington state. And take a printer and go print out the ballots.
Yeah.
No, literally, it's legal.
Yeah.
If it's legal, it's law here. It might not be in Texas, but it is here.
Yeah.
And you better use the tactics, because you need to say,
because they are.
Right. They are going to.
I mean, that's the problem, is the parties, the grassroots Republican Party, they're so against that because it's not right. Well, we know it's not right, but they're going to do it.
Right.
So either if it's legal, you better do it so we can get into office and make some changes.
And you better go door knock and tell people what you do stand for. Forget trying to fight back or mudsling on the other people that lied about you. Instead, get out to the door-to-door citizen and talk about the things we all care about: inflation. Talk about the drug problem and the crime problems. Talk about safety for your kids in your area. Everybody cares about their kids.
Right. Talk
about who you are as a person, and just find common ground. And that's what people need to do. Instead of this crazy evil mudslinging. You say have the mind of Christ, right? Do you think Jesus would be mudslinging, except maybe with the money changers? There's a whole story to that. But really, he'd be standing on truth. You have to stand on truth. That's where we'll win. It's not by getting in this crazy clown show. It's
Right.
not.
Right. Yeah. I'm totally there. I mean, it is a clown show. And, I'm Nicole, a lot like what you said, where I'm not red or blue, although I am very biblically conservative. And so the way that I roll is whoever's the one that is you know withholding those morality values. And right now, it's very clear that one side is, I mean, the chasm has become incredibly wide between the two parties. I saw someone the other day being interviewed, just a gal on the street, and she was saying all the things about Trump that we are saying about this other candidate who I don't even want to say her name, but that he was a communist and that he's a dictator and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, he hasn't had an one iota of anything. Like this is part of like the Marxist playbook, is to accuse your opponent of what you're doing. And it's like she literally has Marxists in her family. Like, this is crazy. It's crazy world that we live in. I'm so grateful that my hope is in nothing less than Christ's blood and righteousness, and that I know that ultimately he's coming back, because it's pretty amazing the world that we live in right now.
We see the divisiveness in just, I tell people all the time, Trump's rubbed me the wrong way in several instances. I mean, the rollout of the vaccine, I'm angry about, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why he made that decision. Again, we'd still be on lockdown if he didn't, or there's this, or there's that.
Right.
I don't like it.
Right.
He is a powerful person, and powerful people a lot of times have made backdoor deals and, whatever. I'm not even going to say for 1 second, and this is what I feel is very important, is I'm not going to say for 1 second he's perfect, but he's the best option.
Totally.
And people
there
need
is
to
no doubt about that. Yeah.
That there is no person who is running for office that you're going to agree with 100%.
No.
I don't agree with some of the wordings he uses. I don't agree with sometimes when he's too arrogant. But
yeah,
I do like a majority of his policies. So
yeah.
It's not about, again, that's the divisiveness. If you stand for him, you're like against everything else, and you think he's a god, and you think this and you think that. And it's like, no, I don't think that at all.
Mm-hmm.
But he's the best choice. And I think that if we maybe said that more and just were kind of a little more honest than, dying on that hill. No, I believe everything. He's the best thing in the world. And we didn't act so strong.
I think we've lost. There we go. Got you back. We've got you back.
We did. There was a call coming through.
Okay, gotcha.
Sorry.
No.
Fault, malfunction.
Yeah, I'm right there with you in the sense that there are things that I can't explain that he's done. And there are a lot of there's all of our lives, there's things that I've done that people are like, I don't agree with her either, and especially in my past. And if you go digging in anyone's laundry basket, you're going to find something stinky. That's just
Absolutely.
The reality of being, the human condition, and why Jesus came, to, seek and to save that which was lost. People say, well, Jesus didn't come to condemn, right? Because we were already lost. He came to save, which was already condemned. And so The same is true about, President Trump and in his life and in his history and all that kind of stuff. I mean, when stuff gets brought up. But, that being said, you're absolutely right. And I think that there's a lot of candidates and other people who are realizing that. I mean, we have, Kennedy coming on board with President Trump. And, while I don't align with a lot of the things that Kennedy stands for, I align with the fact that he's like, listen, we have a country to save. And that's kind of where and it's not just a country. We have, I mean, internationally, we have people who are watching our country, who are living in incredibly horrendous, I mean, even Canada, for example, living in tyrannical situations that, are looking to the US as kind of that beacon of hope and hoping that this beacon doesn't fall. So it's really interesting times with which, we live. And so I'm really grateful that, your paper, your publication is out there. And we do have someone who asked, they said, I'm in Washington State and I will hand out papers. Carlene Gonzalez, thank you so much for writing. And so will you tell the people watching and listening, how do I get papers to hand out and pass them out?
Go to theflameusa.com and go to the subscribe button, and we ship them once a month. So literally they come to your doorstep. You can order one. I would suggest either the 333 and tell 3 more people to do it and spread it that way. Or if you want to go really big, go big or go home, get 100 or get 300 and leave them at your coffee shop, leave them at your car dealer, leave them at, a restaurant, leave them at your convenience store, give them to your neighbor.
That's great.
That's how we get to the movable middle. And so it's just a matter of what you have capacity to do. The 333 is an easy way. It's $10 a month. If you even go by a Washington coffee stand and pay $7 for a coffee, it literally just switch that money and get 3 papers. And it's $9.97, I believe, for 3. So coffee and a cake pop or whatever.
And it's way easier than what people think. It's not doing anything more than what you already do. I literally carry them in my car, and when I'm going in somewhere, I grab a couple and I leave them. Or if I happen to be able to have a great conversation with somebody on the soccer field or the baseball field or the basketball court, I bring them papers
all day, every day. I run to my truck so many times. Hold on, let me show you. And I run and I bring them a paper, and it's and I give it to them. I don't have to say another word. I don't have to get into a debate. I don't have to do anything.
I do want to touch bases on that, so that people understand that if you're not comfortable having the deep conversations, or feel like maybe, you just don't have enough information, every paper is an hour conversation that you can have with somebody that you don't actually have to have. And that is the beauty in it. You can't, Nicole says all the time, you can't leave your Uber driver a Rumble video. And that is so true. And so it is an opportunity to have that hour conversation on so many different subjects. And I'll tell you, even for the people who don't align with you, what's happened to us in the last couple of years is a lot of people that didn't align with us at all have come full circle and are like, I remember when you wrote about this, and then I looked it up and oh my gosh, or, I really respect you didn't, judge me for my decision to get vaccinated. And now we have vaccine injury in our household and I'm devastated. And I wish that I would have taken the time to read. Or people who didn't get vaccinated because they read our paper and now they're looking back going, oh my gosh, thank goodness I, had the paper to give to people, because I know people who didn't get vaccinated because of it. And so it really, again, either way, whether you did or didn't, that's your choice, but you should have informed consent and you didn't. And that's a problem. And that's what we are always going to be fighting for, is to have that informed consent and to have the opportunity to have a conversation and work through it. And it's not, like I said,
and be free. The United States of America is based on freedom.
Right.
And to be free doesn't mean we're saying you have to believe what we have to believe. You don't have, I change my beliefs often because as more information is presented to me,
right,
I have to make different decisions. And then I have to say I was wrong. I was wrong about believing this, or I made a mistake, or it's not all true. And I have to retract my own thoughts, and I have to do a lot of deep inquiry within my own soul and within myself to really ask for discernment and to take the time to make, and I'm going to be wrong again. I'm going to be wrong. But you have to at least have the information, and that's freedom.
100%.
Freedom is to choose. They have freedom of religion. We talk about Jesus, we talk about all of that, but it's freedom to choose. God never imposes himself on you. It's free will. We have freedom, and if it becomes tyrannical, you will not have freedom, and neither will your kids or grandkids.
The freedom of information too, which is so important, and we are very limited in that. The algorithms on all the things that we think are free, and we've got these streaming, like we said earlier in the show, this stuff is curated actually. And so we have to break out of the matrix that they've created for us, and and go in searching of this information. And, back in the day, many of us were, X-Files fans. And, as Fox Mulder would say, the truth is out there. And it is so true. The truth is out there, right? We have to search. And then you have to also, realize that, even some of these search engines that we were used to have become these giant conglomerate machines that scrub information. I mean, we're living through the book 1984, and it's George Orwell. It's amazing how he knew. He had the foreknowledge, and that's another rabbit hole to go down. But
things that are so hidden that you're never going to get to the bottom of it. That you can get so close, and you're like, "There's this piece missing. What is it?" And you
they
can't
removed
find
the
it,
piece,
and you can't find it, and you realize how big the corruption is, that we probably won't ever get to the full bottom. But what we can do is we can get close enough to become aware of our own selves and our own families and our own communities, and shift, and we can create change for the future.
And love. A lot of the far right people have gotten into some hateful behavior lately, and they are going opposite because they've done so much propaganda. There was a movie called, I think, Utopia or something like that. It's like 11 hours. It was on Hitler being good. And there was so much truth in that movie, not about Hitler being good, but about how he came about and about Russia. And it goes way back and through the weeds. But what happened is people took that whole concept on, and then they start hating a whole group of people. And so the hate continues, and now it looks crazy. And so when we're just trying to be balanced and get news out, the people that took on a whole nother side, they don't trust anybody. Now they make a whole movement look crazy as the left, because they go so far over that you've got to come to a balanced conclusion. And you go, yeah, they're trying, agenda's true. This is true. There's a lot of history there that we don't know about, and it's okay not to know. But we do have to stand up for freedom. And it gets pretty simple if you really come down to it. Yeah.
Well, I'm just grateful that there are sources out there like The Flame. And again, you guys, you can go to theflameusa.com. Where else can people find The Flame information? I know that you guys are on Instagram. And where else can they find information? And so you guys have the paper publication. Are there online versions where people can read? If people don't read old school paper, Can they read the
Yeah,
publication
so
online?
yeah, we can go through it. I'll go through it, and then I'm going to actually pass the baton because we have the press company as well, and have Nicole just briefly talk about that. So at theflameusa.com, we do have a digital, and then we have, like I said, from one paper all the way up to 300 papers. We also offer advertising. So if anybody has a business that they would like to advertise nationally, so our paper is national, we are a great option for that. And we're always looking for content. So if you are a person who has a breaking story, please share it with us. And we are on all of the social media platforms. We do a weekly podcast. Rumble is
The Flame USA.
The Flame USA. And on our website, you can see everywhere that we are. Please make sure that you do watch our videos and like and share. We are trying to grow our social media presence, because that is how more people will order papers. So social media is very important to us for the growth of the paper. And so, yes, then we also have
the Flame Press. So if you have an organization or you're a candidate and you want to get your message spread like wildfire, not our message, your message. And if you want to fundraise, you go to theflamepress.com. And if you're an organization, it's a good way to grow your organization and to fundraise. And we will do all the back. We have a whole team, so we're good at what we do.
We do it all. And shout out to candidates.
Yeah.
You guys can't get everywhere, but guess what? You can get an hour conversation into a paper, and you can get other people to take you everywhere.
Absolutely. And it's your paper for a candidate. So that's what we got, and more even. So
yeah.
Well, thank you, Anna and Nicole, for taking the time to come out and help us find this information that's out there, stuff that's hidden, and the articles and the op-eds and everything that's in the Flame is incredible information. And so I really encourage you guys to dig into that, to subscribe and start handing this out. I can't tell you how many people, and it shocks me every time when people say, well, I didn't know that was going on. And I'm thinking, how can you not know? And so if you know what's going on, if you are awake, now's the time to, help your neighbor, help your, as your local coffee shop, especially if you live in an area where, this information is being blocked, and, share these shows, share the Flames podcast, the Flame USA, share the Remedy with Sarah Amazing Grace podcast, we're social media for people who are spreading the truth is actually hindered. You're put down into the bottom of the news feeds, and it's shadow banning is very real. And so the only way to break through that is for you guys to share and comment and like. All of that helps break through the algorithm and gets the truth out there. So, and Jesus is the way. He is truth, and he is life, and the truth, Jesus, will set you free. And so ultimately, at the bottom of every rabbit hole, you're going to find hope, and that hope is Jesus, because he is truth. So thank you so much, you guys, Anna and Nicole, for coming out. And I just hope that the Flame has just such incredible success through all of the muck that we're going through. And to you guys, that I love you. Thanks for hanging out with us today. And until next time, peace.
Thank you, Sarah.